CDL London is starting up this weekend. We've got 8 teams to go over and give you guys some predictions along with some betting lines to take a look at. So strap in, let's dig through these CDL London predictions right now. God fans, welcome back. Good to see you guys. I hold shift. Pleasure being back on the channel with you guys once again. It's going to be a fun weekend. We've got CDL London, the first real true home event that we're going to be looking at. Yes, Minnesota was the launch weekend, but as far as the entire regular season goes, this is the format that we're going to be seeing almost exclusively for the rest of the next 13 or so weeks until we get to the playoffs. Again, just as a reminder, only 8 of the 12 teams will be attending CDL London. So if you're out there playing Fantasy COD, make sure you go back and take a look at my most recent video, which was the Draft Buff Fantasy Now, which will give you all the looks and takes as far as who you should be starting, who you should be sitting, and who you might want to be picking up off the free agency list. We also went through our most recent power rankings, so again, if you're enjoying this type of content, please make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know exactly when my videos pop up. Let's dig into this one and take a look just at the groups. Again, as a reminder, as far as what this weekend will look like, we're dealing with, again, 8 teams. They're split up into 2 different groups of 4, obviously. And the whole process to get through your group and into the final bracket is to find 2 wins in your pool. So it's not a quite true round robin, because if you win your first 2 games, you don't have to play the third opponent. So it kind of looks like a double elimination style bracket where you've got 2 teams that are matched up against each other. If you lose, you go down to the losers bracket. If you lose again, you're out. If you win, you get the chance to fight for that second win. So 2 teams will make it out of each pool, and then they'll go to a final 4 bracket where it's single elimination from there on out. Top of Group A plays the second in Group B. Top of Group B plays the second in Group A. That should make a little bit more sense if you're familiar with how tournaments work. So let's take a look first and foremost at Group A. This pool I feel like is the more difficult of the 2 as we get into London. Even though London's not in this pool, they'll be in Group B, but I still feel like this is the most difficult one here. Dallas will play up against Seattle first, and then Chicago will go up against LAG. Now, as you take a look at this matchup in specific between Dallas and Seattle, I have to remind you what this team has looked like so far. Not a lot of people were very impressed with what Seattle were able to bring. I was actually more impressed, to be completely candid with you guys, going all the way to Game 5 in both of their games and looking atrocious in the search and destroy while doing that just gives me hope that, hey, if their respawn even gets a little bit better, but their search and destroy gets, their main focus, they get better at search, this team very well could win this game. Do I think it's going to happen? Maybe not. We'll find out when we get to the bookie's worst nightmare at the end when we talk about our betting lines. But this is not a matchup I think you should sleep on whatsoever. It should be a pretty decent one, I think, if Seattle has fixed their search and destroy and they continue to improve a bit in their respawn. Right now, I still think that Dallas, if all 5 players play at the highest of their potential, is still the better team, of course. How could you say otherwise? But I think Seattle can give them a run for their money, so don't sleep on that one here. Chicago and LAG are going to be up next, and this is one that I don't feel so great about for the Los Angeles Guerrillas, simply due to the fact that I think the Chicago Huntsman team has showcased right now that they are the best respawn team in the game. Yes, the difference between them and the Atlanta FaZe and Hardpoint is negligible, but there's a big gap, I think, from what we saw with the Chicago Huntsman on domination versus what we saw from the Atlanta FaZe. Yeah, they played pretty well in their first matchup versus Dallas, but it took them a little while to get going on the domination gun runner. And then again for Atlanta, when they were playing up against New York, they got kind of smoked on the Hackney Yard Dom. We've seen instances of Chicago looking very, very solid so far in the domination specifically. They've only played Hackney Yard, but they looked very good on both of those times that they played. On the LA Guerrillas side of things, though, they also have only played Hackney Yard, and they were able to find a win versus the Florida Mutineers, but they didn't look nearly as good on it versus the Minnesota Rockers. So that's, I think, what's going to decide most of this series is what happens in the domination. I think that the search could be close between these 2 teams, but if Chicago's able to win the first hard point and take the domination, I don't see any world that the Los Angeles Guerrillas have a chance to take this one. So coming out of Group A, personally speaking, I think you're going to get a Chicago-Dallas rematch in the winner's bracket here of this bracket. And from there, I think you're going to see Chicago come out as the number 1. I think Dallas loses to Chicago, but still comes out as the number 2. I'll give you the map counts and stuff like that as far as what I think is going to be for predictions when we get to the Bookie's Worst Nightmare segment, again, at the end of the video. Going into Group B, though, this is going to be an interesting one to talk about because we've got Paris versus New York, and then London versus Toronto. And in this pool specifically, not only do you have the home crowd favorite in the London Royal Ravens, but the Royal Ravens have played up against both New York and Paris already when they were at the launch weekend. So that experience, I think, is going to really bode well for them when it comes to them trying to get out of this bracket. As long as they can get through Toronto, I think that they're able to find a way to get out of this bracket in 2 straight wins. But let's talk about the matchup at the top. Paris versus New York. And honestly, this is kind of a hard one to talk about simply due to this New York team is a little bit all over the place currently. Now, there is some signs of life here. They are currently the 12th rated team in both Hardpoint and Search and Destroy. Based on, again, the 2 times that they were able to play, the differentials were not great. And honestly speaking, accuracy did not have a good weekend whatsoever at Minnesota. However, when they were playing up against Atlanta, this was actually a pretty close set. 211-250 was the first hard point where, again, New York was up for a good portion of that gun runner until about midway through the second rotation of hills. About P3, P4 is where Atlanta really stepped up. And then they were able to also beat this team in the Atlanta phase 201-136 on the Hackney Yard Dom. And why I'm so impressed by that is the simple fact that they look terrible on that same map mode combination against the London Royal Ravens. So is there potential for this New York team to beat Paris? Long-windedly, I'm still going to say no. This Paris team, I think, is actually pretty much the truth. They looked really, really good, and more importantly, they looked really, really consistent throughout each of the modes and maps that they played. Again, they're sitting currently at 2-1 in Hardpoint, 2-1 in Search, but most impressively was how they looked in the domination. That was both on Gunrunner, where they were able to find a 184-166 win and a 191-169 win, that coming against Optic Gaming LA and the London Royal Ravens, respectively. So do I think that New York is going to stand up to this squad? They're going to have to win both hard points and then obviously be able to get that one of the Search and Destroys. That's the only way I think New York takes this. I still don't like their chances, though, simply put to the fact that I like Kismet on a sniper rifle more than I like anybody else on New York, especially when you're looking at Zero, who did not look very great on the Search and Destroy Piccadilly the 2 times that he pulled out the sniper rifle when he was at Minnesota. So I still like Paris in this one. Again, I'll give you the map counts when I get there. And then for the London and Toronto series, again, you got to like London in this one, I think. It's just hard to really kind of definitively say it because London did look a little all over the place at Minnesota. Of course, a very quick and decisive 3-0 versus the New York Subliners, which at the time, and the stands were all kind of looking at each other like, holy smokes, this London team is good. But then we kind of realized that New York is not good that weekend. They were not playing well at all. And then they got absolutely destroyed by the Paris Legion, with really the exception of the hard point. It was a 214-250 on Ramaza. Yeah, it went to round 10 in Search and Destroy, but Toronto was really never Paris was never really out of control when it came to that Search in specific. And then, like I mentioned, they kind of got handed a little bit on the domination. So, playing against this Toronto team who also went 1-1, I do still like London in this matchup simply due to the fact that Toronto was a little shaky in multiple instances versus the Seattle Surge, including the Search and Destroy, by the way. Went round 11 for them to take that series on Ramaza. And beyond that, they looked okay on the hard point, and they looked a little bit shaky on the Dom. So I think you got to give the natural tilt with the home crowd behind them to the London Royal Ravens in this one. And as far as who gets out of this pool, I got London getting out of this one. Likely in the first 2 games. I have them beating Paris in the winners bracket finals, if you want to call it that. And then I've got Paris taking out Toronto in the other side of the Group B losers bracket. I got New York losing both games this time around, just as a kind of a little bit of a heads up for you as far as what I'm looking at. Now, again, there's really not much for me to really predict past this, so let's go ahead and dig into our Bookie's Worst Nightmare, where we can break down these matches a little bit more specifically, show you guys some of the betting lines. If you're interested in getting involved in betting, I do have a referral code. get onto my Twitter and DM me if you're interested if you're in the United States, that is, and you're looking to bet on some of these games. I'll give you a referral link. We both get a little bit of money because of using that, and I can kind of showcase you how to use the website that I use, which is bovada.lv. I'll leave a link in the description below for you if you want to check it out. Starting with the first matchup that we'll get on Saturday, it's Paris versus New York. I already kind of framed this one up about why I like Paris so much in this matchup. It mostly comes down to what they've been able to provide, especially in the search and destroy. I still think New York has a chance to make a go of this. I would not be surprised to see New York take a hard point, maybe even take the dom, but I do not see them winning this series. I've got this one going 5, and with the lines currently as they are, you've got a little bit of underdog potential at plus 135 if you want to swing your way towards New York. However, this is not a game that I think is worth betting on in any instance. Paris is a heavy favorite coming in, minus 185. If they get a 3-1 or a 3-0, it's plus 120. And again, if you're unfamiliar with what those terms mean, essentially if you put $10 down on plus 120, you will get $12. It's essentially $1 per the plus. So not the greatest return. And again, it does not feel like it's worth betting on this one whatsoever. So I would personally stay away from betting on this one unless you want to go with a little bit of a frisky bet to see if New York takes the series. But again, I don't see them doing that. Going to our second setup, Dallas will be playing up against the Seattle Surge. And again, Dallas is the heavy favorite here once again. Minus 315 last I checked. And the minus 1.5, again, for them to win 3-1 or 3-0, it's minus 150. Not worth taking either of those bets because I think there is potential that Seattle could maybe send this to a game 5. I personally have this one going 3-1 in favor of Dallas. I think Seattle can take either the first hard point or the dom, depending on how picks go. But I don't see them winning the search, and I don't see them winning the follow-up, whatever Dallas's pick is for the hard point. I don't have them winning that one. So I've got this one going 4, 3-1 the score for me here. And again, I don't feel like there's a reason to bet on this game. Flat out. There's just nothing in favor here. Even if you were to parlay maybe Dallas with somebody, the minus 310 is not going to really help you out too much. So as we get into the back half of the day, where we've got Chicago going up against the Los Angeles Guerrillas, again, Chicago is a heavy favorite coming in at minus 315. Minus 165 for, again, if they find a 3-1 or a 3-0. It's not worth it. Do not bet on this game because I still think there's an opportunity where the Los Angeles Guerrillas could potentially send this to 5. It just comes down to what they're able to do when it comes to their hard point and if they can win the domination. Again, this is not a bad domination team in the Los Angeles Guerrillas. I don't think it's nearly as good as the Chicago squad, but anything can happen. Plus 220 for the underdogs here of LAG, plus 120 for them to send it to map 5. Again, I don't like either of those bets. I would stay away from betting on this game. Going to the final game of the day, you've got London and then you've got Toronto. And this is where things might start to look a little bit more fresh for you guys. London is coming in again as the favorite, minus 190 to win the match as a whole, but plus 110 for them to find a 3-0 or a 3-1. So you will essentially, if you put down 10, you'll get 11 in return, plus the 10 that you initially betted, obviously. For Toronto, they're coming in as the underdogs, only plus 140, though, for them to win this series, and a minus 150 for them to cover the spread and send this to map number 5. Personally, this is the one that I think you look at for a spread bet and say, okay, London I think can absolutely take this. But before we go too far into the individual bets, I want to talk prop bets with you guys just very quickly before we wrap things up here, because that's where I think you're going to make your money this weekend. Going off of what you know from some of these teams and what they're able to perform on, let's go back and take a look at Group A really quickly. Again, a prop bet means that you can either bet for a full match line. If you think it's going to be a 3-2 or a 3-1, it pays out pretty high, but you can also bet on individual maps. So, Paris and New York, I think you're looking at the search and destroy and giving a prop bet to Paris because, again, New York looked absolutely atrocious there, and I think you can actually throw some consideration to the hard point as well, depending on the map set. Again, that's the one thing to keep an eye on. Paris has looked very good with their SMGs. I would favor them in a map like Hackney Yard over a team like New York, but I would be a little bit more cautious when it comes to maps like Gunrunner, things of that nature. But I think if you're looking for prop bets, the search and the hard point here for Paris is a favorite, I think, depending on the map set. Going to the Dallas-Seattle game, again, I think you're looking at the search here. I feel like you got to like Dallas when it comes to the search and destroy specifically. The hardpoint domination, depending on the map and how you're feeling after map number 1, if it looks like the SMG line for Dallas isn't playing well and the hardpoint, maybe you take Seattle in the dom. because again, this is not a bad Respawn team in Seattle, and if they're able to keep gunning against this Dallas team, I have them winning the domination. So I would say look at the search and destroy for Dallas and the domination for Seattle. Going into the second group of games, again here, you're looking at the hard point for Chicago, and you're looking at the search for Chicago against this LAG squad. I would be a little cautious to go towards the domination in favor of LAG, just depending again on what the map is. Again, the Chicago team is very, very good at Respawn. I think, again, they're the best in the league currently. And then again, for London, you're looking at, again, I think at the hard point, the domination, I think London can take both of those. So I think prop bets might be your way if you're looking to make some money this weekend. That's kind of my take on it as far as the bookie's worst nightmare. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll be trying to bring you guys updates throughout the weekend. I will be casting this weekend, though, at AGN Charlotte. So after you're done watching the games in London, make sure you tune over to the AGN stream at AGN_events, I think it is. You'll see it on my Twitter. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll post it for you guys. I'll be casting that local live for you, and hopefully you guys enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch you guys for the day one recap tomorrow. Hope you guys have a good one. Later. Bye-bye.